Hi guys, my name is Vivianne Boaz and welcome to another episode of the EHS Unplugged Podcast. Now, are you currently in an organization where the culture is very poor or very negative? And are you wondering how you can transition from that to a more positive safety culture? With me today, I have a guest who's had experience with a very poor culture in an organization she's worked at, and she's going to be sharing tips on how to transition from a poor culture to a positive safety culture. Welcome, Vivianne.
Okay, thank you, Vivian. My name is Vivianne Boaz. I'm currently working in the energy sector as an HSE specialist. Yeah, it's true. We have organizations that have a negative safety culture, and I've worked in one that was basically having a very poor safety culture, but we transitioned over time to a positive one. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah, back to you, Vivian.
Thank you very much for coming. So, guys, as you've heard, she's had experience, or she has experience managing an organization that previously had a very poor culture, and right now, where she is, I mean, over the years, I don't know how long, but she'll tell us, but over the years, she's helped the company transition to a more positive safety culture. So, if I just want us to dig in, what does a poor safety culture look like really? Because most of us might not even know going into a company, what does it look like?
Okay. An organization that has a poor safety culture will be characterized by basically people not taking safety seriously in the culture, in the organization, I mean. But like safety is not a priority to that organization, as they, in most cases, they will prioritize production or making margins over the safety of their people. So they are not even aware of safety issues, how they're supposed to manage safety for their people, or in other situations, they are ignorant. Yeah, so that to me is a very poor safety culture. For us to achieve a positive safety culture, it's not all about having the PPEs. Just to take you back, PPEs is the last resort in the hierarchy of controls. So we have the elimination, we have the substitution, we have the engineering, administrative, and then PPEs comes down. So in an organization, we really need to look onto the other 5 categories before we even get to the personal protective equipment. So to me, a company having both the PPEs and complying to the regulatory requirements doesn't really mean that they have achieved a positive safety culture. So that is just being reactive than being proactive in managing safety.
Okay. So let me ask you also, so now that you have experience in this particular area, what tips can you give us for someone who is trying to assist a company or help a company transition?
Yeah, so as a safety officers or somebody who is in charge of safety, if you get to an organization that has such culture, it is a bit of a challenge for you to transition from the poor safety attitude to a positive one. So by that I mean, you may even feel like you drained, you may even experience mental breakdowns when trying to maneuver to the top management. But essentially that is the reason as to why you are there as a specialist, to advise, to guide, and to ensure that at the end of the day you achieve that positive culture. So giving up is not an option for an HSO officer unless you're just there for compliance. So if you find yourself in such a scenario, so we have ways in which you can maneuver to ensure that at the end of the day people have complied. So by that I mean, as an HSE officer, you need to find your way to the top management, because all these safety responsibilities, according to OSHA 2007, the duty of ensuring safety lies with the occupier. So as the HSE officer there, you've just been delegated to ensure that this is done. So you'll find yourself to the top management, try to convince them, talk to them, explain to the top management, advise them, and ensure at the end of the day they buy into the idea of managing safety. Then involve them. Involving the top management, it will make them feel like, okay, this is our thing, and we need to trickle down to the people that we manage at the sites. So involving the top management, let's say the CEO, having the CEO go to sites, having the CEO lead as an example of complying to the health and safety requirements, like having the necessary PPEs, having the CEO talk to the minor staff, so that one creates a good culture. So it is difficult just to find your way to the top management. Yeah, it's not an overnight thing that you can just wake up and find yourself. Now you are going to talk to the CEO, convincing him. It takes time. So you need to have a good background of what is needed for a company to comply to the HSE requirements, and also creating a good safety culture. So you need to give them value for safety. As we all know, safety is an indirect, it gives the company an indirect cost, not a direct one. So you need to make the organization, the top management understand that if I do this, this and this, I'll save on the cost of having to pay for accidents, having to pay for penalties. So in that, you will buy in the idea of the top management. Then the next thing is to ensure that now onboarding of the people to the health and safety. So for the existing staff, train them. For the joining staff, ensure that they undergo the health and safety onboarding process. It is easier to manipulate a new resource, or a new employee to a good culture as opposed to the existing one. So that is also another way in which you can manipulate them and ensuring that they comply. Then another thing is because safety is everybody's role or duty, so we're supposed to ensure that in their JD, that is the job description, it is part of it, and then it is a key matrix that is assessed at the end of the day. So each and everybody has a role to play, so you give them a role that is, after you manage to talk to the management, that is now easier for them to incorporate it in the job description of the people. Let the managers have their duty, let the supervisors have their duty, let the junior staff have their duty to do for them to ensure safety is managed. And then there is the involving of the workers now. Involve them in whatever you do. Don't police. Yeah, in most cases, people will view the HSU officers as police. So they will feel like, okay, I'll only comply when I see the HSE person, but when they walk away, I just reset back to my normal working. So involve them, train them, empower them. Don't criticize, don't make them feel like if they report something, they'll be victimized. So you should assure them that reporting is encouraged, and all that. So through that, you find your way, like over time, people now accustomed to the culture that is a positive one. Then another thing that we do is for the incidents that occurs at site, make sure that you manage them well. Don't victimize the casualty. Like if somebody has been injured at site, if you send them away, they even fear to report accidents. So you encourage them to report even the minor or the major incidents, and then ensure that you treat all the incidents that have been reported to you with a lot of care. Yeah, a lot of care, a lot of keenness. So in that way, you motivate them. Then we have the activities that you can involve people to do, like the safety activities. Yeah, you create like the team building. Yeah, allow the team, the workers, to also take part in the training other people. Like when they are given a chance to do it, they feel like they've been involved. So that is the idea of involving them in everything that you do. Then you should have feedback sessions. That is the only way you will know, like you're moving in the right direction. You can be doing your thing, then you realize everybody is just seated, nothing is being done. But if you involve them, they will, by asking them to give you feedback, they will feel like, okay, so they value our feedback, we are valued, so we are part of this. So in the long run, you find that now the culture is moving well. Then we should have policies. So having a policy and guiding them on what the policy is talking about. So we not supposed just to draft policies to punish. Yeah, just have policies that will guide on the positive way of improving the safety culture. So yeah, through that, then we will achieve a positive safety culture.
Thank you for that, and you've also highlighted some key points that I think most organizations are missing out on. The first one you mentioned, the JDs, that is job description, ensure that the EHS or safety responsibilities are captured there, right? And I think most organizations are not doing that. So if you're watching this, I think that is something you could incorporate, ensure that an employee's JD is capturing the safety requirements, right, or the responsibilities, so that at the end of the day, you're able to track that. Then you also mentioned, you talked of getting access to the CEOs, top management, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that release the money. At the end of the day, they're the ones who have the authority to hire and fire employees, right? But I was feeling like getting access to a CEO means that the HSE person has to be able to understand what health and safety entails. Lazima ukuwe umeelewa kazi yako vizuri sana, right? For you to be able to advise, right? So thank you very much for that. Now, to my next question is, you talked of feedbacking. What are some of the techniques that you can use to gain feedback from your teams?
Okay, having sessions, you can do the round tables, whereby you can have a given group of people, that is the staff, sit down and have a discussion. Let them give you their genuine feedback on the steps or on how you're performing in terms of managing the health and safety. We also encourage surveys, and it should be anonymous, so that people don't feel like they are targeted or something. Just do random, abrupt inspections, abrupt audits, give genuine feedback, and come up with a tracker to ensure that all the items that have been raised have been closed. So in that way, that is the only way you can get feedback on the direction in which you move into.
Thank you for that. I'm also looking at if you have an organization that has, say, technicians or handymen who are not really conversant with the English language, what is the best feedbacking procedure that you would recommend?
For people like in most of my sites, I work with casuals whom we're not even sure, like they have some certain level of education. So we, as an HSC person, you should be agile, like you should be able to communicate in English, communicate in Swahili, and even have a way of communicating in their vernacular. If that is the only way you can get their attention. If that is the only way they can be able to understand and comply, then you have to do it. You have even to teach them in their own language.
Yeah.
We have people, I'm sure in a group of 10, if 9 are not understanding the language, there is one of them who understands and can assist in explaining and also getting feedback from them. So once you get feedback from those people, try as much as possible to solve those issues. It will encourage them. They feel like, oh, today we say maybe we have scaffolds that are not properly tightened. We reported this, and then there was an action that took place. So you should also ensure that whatever has been raised, at least you try to close them out, the gaps. If you don't do that, if they keep on reporting, like let's say for example on Monday they said we have this problem, on Tuesday we have this problem, it comes to a point whereby they not even give feedback. So ensure that once they give out their feedback, you actioned on that feedback. Give them a solution. Yeah, sometimes they might be working in an area that maybe there was a procedure on doing that work and they feel it's unsafe. As an HSE person, you should have a way of advising. Maybe you go to a site and you find that this is wrong. You should have the right way of doing that thing. You should not tell them like, this scaffold is wrong, have it removed, and then you don't give a solution. You must give a solution. Maybe you're using a wooden ladder, this is not safe, have this type of ladder. So you should also be able to give them solution, because during the transitioning, you get to a point whereby they will start tempting you.
They test you.
Yeah, they will test you. Yeah, just to know, like, are you sure of what you say? Are you even aware of what you say? Or you just going reading books and then coming to give them that content? So they are a bit tricky, they are cheeky. So they will always come up with something just maybe to pin you down. So you should research, as an HSE person, research day and night, expand in your knowledge, share with others, so that when you get any feedback, you know how to solve it. Yeah.
So, Vivianne, you've talked about, you say in your case, it took you around roughly 2 years, right? So, I'm imagining there are organizations with very unique challenges. So, what do you think are points you could share with them that would help them transition faster to a more positive culture?
We have companies that are still struggling to move to a positive safety culture. So we have quite a number of factors that can influence that. We have years of experience. There are some people in an organization that have worked for several years, and then we have the new people who have lesser experience. So that one also has an impact on how quick an organization can transition. So for instance, you will find somebody has worked there for like 20 years, and then if you try to change something in them, they are a bit reluctant. They will always tell you, have been doing these things even before you were born, and I've never encountered an accident. But it doesn't matter the number of years you are in a place, and you might get injured even when you've been left with 1 day to your retirement. So it doesn't really matter. So in such a scenarios, we have people who are just difficult to change because of the experience. And also education is also another factor that influences how fast people tend to adopt to a positive safety culture. We have people who feel like they have more knowledge, they are learned, and they can't listen to issues of safety. Then we have the people who didn't go to school. Probably they've learned on the job, but they don't have prior knowledge on anything. So education also influences how fast people transition to a safety culture. And then lastly, we have issues to do with also gender. Yeah, gender is also a challenge in that we have in some organizations, they will always feel like, oh, so this is a woman in safety, you will not tell me anything. So unless it's a man, and also the culture also affects in that we have some cultures who feel like women should be at home and not working.
Can I say this?
So yeah,
especially the Maasai culture, they believe that women should be in the home and then men should be working for all jobs. So it becomes very difficult for you to give instructions to a male Maasai man. So I know that. Yeah.
so like I'm saying, like, if you have such people in a site, then we have those people who incite each other. So you only need to send one or two away, and the rest we feel like, okay, we are going to lose this, let's just comply. So you need to have a consequence management policy in place, and especially if you're working with subcontractors who are rigid. Yeah, you can work with subcontractors who are rigid, and subcontractors now are one of the major risks in our workplace. So if you encounter that, just give them a penalty. For instance, you find them they do not have the PPEs. You can have the PPEs and issue the people, then you deduct from their margins. So if you do that to one subcontractor, I'm sure the rest will comply. Yeah, but that is now the last option, which is reactive, of course, but in some extreme scenarios, you need to do that. Yeah.
Euphemia, thank you for the tips that you've shared so far. As we're coming to the tail end of this very interesting conversation, let me just ask you the last question. How do I know as a management or as a health and safety person who's in charge that have actually made progress in transitioning to a more positive safety culture?
Yeah, okay. We have quite a number of ways in which you can use to measure that you're moving to the correct direction. So the first thing you look into is now the attitude. You will see generally how the workers are behaving, how the management is behaving, and the overall improvement in safety. You just assess their attitude, how willing are people to give you information, how willing are they to report incidents and all that. Then the next thing you look into is the number of accidents and incidents. Definitely, when achieving a positive safety culture, you reduce the number of incidents because people are now keen. People are now, they know how to operate safely. So in that way, you will realize that the numbers have reduced. So maybe if you've been recording maybe 50 incidents in a month, then you realize that you're coming to 5 to 2 and eventually 0 because that is the overall goal. Then another way to know that the company is now adopting a positive safety culture is how management are treating some safety aspects. For instance, the number of people who can attend trainings. Maybe you're conducting an organization-wide safety training. So how many people are joining to that? So if you achieve, let me give a rate, maybe 80 to 90% of the total staff. So that means they have a positive safety culture. And also the participation of the people during the training. Are they asking questions, giving suggestions and all that? So that one is also a measure that people are moving on well. Then we have the safety meetings that we do. You will get from the OHS committee. Sometimes you can be having an OHS committee that when you call for a meeting, out of 10, you only receive 2. then the rest will be like, oh, I was busy doing something, I was busy doing that. So that is somebody who clearly doesn't have a good interest to health and safety, because we usually say that safety comes first, so you should create time for it. So if you have a good turnout during those meetings, you know that the culture is moving on well. Also, another thing you look at is the approvals, the requisitions. You request for some safety items. How fast are you? Is the management able to approve? And then ensure that you have the necessary PPEs at site. You can be requesting PPEs and then you get them after 2 months. That one clearly tells you that this is not a priority. But if you request them within a very short period of time, you have the money to purchase and proceed, then that one is good. Then you look at the reaction of the management. For instance, you go to a site and see something unsafe, you give a stop order. How does the management respond? If they feel like, oh, now the safety guy has delayed work and all that, then you have a long way still to go. But if they feel like, okay, the works have been stopped because of the ABCD, guys, you need to comply for you to proceed. That one shows you that now there's that shift from concentrating too much on production, but also equalizing safety to ensure that they all align. So, yeah, that is ways in which we can also measure, like we're moving into the right direction. Then you look now at the management. From the management side, they'll be able now to lead as an example. For instance, you have now the CEO or the top managers volunteering to train the younger ones. You'll find them like they will punish their own when they are violating safety. They really don't need to wait for the HSE person to come and see, but now they've taken it as a responsibility to action when there is non-compliance. So in that way you feel like, okay, the culture is positive, people are taking it positive. Yeah, the HSE man, if the production manager can be able to stop work, then that tells you like we are moving into the right direction. Yeah.
So guys, thank you very much for joining us in this episode. I just wanted to say as we close that safety or health and safety, it's a continuous improvement kind of thing, and you don't transition from a poor culture to a positive one in one day. As our guest has mentioned, for her it took her almost 2 years, which I think it could be more, but even now she's still working on getting to that level of full compliance. Okay, thank you guys for joining us in this episode. I am just going to give our guest an opportunity to share with you, just one last word before she goes. Euphemia?
Yeah, thank you, Vivianne, for the entire time and to the viewers. So, mine is to just encourage the young people who are joining the HSE profession. It is a good field. Yeah, this is the only field, apart from being a doctor, that you take care of people. So it is a good field because our mandate is to ensure that people go back home safe. So yeah, don't be discouraged when you meet some obstacles while doing your work. Just be sure that after a while all things will be well and you move into the right direction. So don't be discouraged. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much, guys. Bye.